Okay, so we want to install the Crimson Trace CTS-1500 red dot optic onto the Springfield Armory XDS OSP. Let's start with looking at everything that we might need and having all that handy. Starting, of course, with just the slide. We don't need to have the full pistol, so for safety and for convenience, I like to field strip the gun, empty the slide, and bring just the slide to the workspace. Makes it a whole lot easier to work with, and again, it's the most safe way to do the job. Next thing we need, of course, is the optic that we want to install, in this case, the Crimson Trace CTS-1500. We're going to need tools, but not much. We're going to need a regular screwdriver, if you've got one. This is a nice speed ratcheting screwdriver that I like to use. And if you have access to one, I highly recommend a torque driver as well. Eventually, we're going to need the right length screws. So I've got a set here that might be the right ones, and I've got some alternates in the bag. These typically are going to come with the optic, not with the pistol. We're also going to need our battery when we're ready to put that optic on there. The other thing you want to use is some good thread lock, like this blue Loctite. Now, the thing about the thread lock is you really want to put that on the day before, or at least several hours before. Let that dry on the threads of the screws. I've already got that on the threads of these screws, but this is here for just a reminder. Okay, job one is to start by taking the cover plate off of our slide. So I'm going to do that first using my speed driver. Okay, turn it over, tap it off, and we've caught the plate and the screws. And we're going to set those aside. Next thing we want to do is set the optic on the pistol. Make sure that it's going to be a fit. Some pistols require adapter plates. This will not require that. So this optic will go directly onto the pistol without any kind of an adapter plate. That's not only good from a convenience perspective, it also is going to help the optic sit down lower into the slide, which is always nice, and it's going to help us co-witness with our sights. So I can see, you probably can't, but I can see that I have a good lineup here with my holes for mounting. That's what we want to make sure of. You just want to make sure it's a good general fit. You want to make sure your holes line up, obviously, for mounting. You also want to make sure you can't wiggle it or slide it around. It should be a nice snug fit when it's sitting down on there. And in this case, it certainly is. Now it's just a matter of finding the right length screws for the job. Okay, now I know I have the right screws and they're set and ready to go. Okay, now I need to put the battery into the optic before I mount it, because you have to remove this particular optic anytime you change the battery. Battery should come with your optic. If not, it's a CR 2032 battery. That's a very common size battery available pretty much any local drugstore. So I'm going to now tighten it down using my regular screwdriver, just because it's a faster screwdriver. And I'm going to get it all the way to snug, which is where I am right now. I'm going to set this one aside. Now, if you only have a regular screwdriver, once you get it to this point where it's snug, it has stopped turning, I would go maybe another 1/8 to 1/4 of a turn, no more. You don't want to over tighten it. In this case, I'm going to be using a torque limiting driver that's preset to 15 inch-pounds. This is another nice advantage of working with a flat slide only, because I can place it down on the work surface and hold it down. Put my tool in there and turn it until I hear that one click. Once I hear that one click, I know I'm at 15 inch-pounds. Do the same thing with the next screw. And there we are. That is now installed. It is torqued to 15 inch-pounds. We have our thread lock already on the threads, and we should be in good shape. That's a nice looking install. It was pretty simple. One other quick tip: whenever you're going to work on something like this, especially when you're going to have small screws that you might drop like that, it's good to have a softer surface. This is just a canvas tarp that's folded that I use on my workbench whenever I'm working on anything where I might drop a small part. I don't want to damage the small parts, and I don't want them bouncing around off of a hard surface and being lost. Okay, the only thing we need now is the rest of the pistol. So I'm going to go ahead and put in the barrel and the recoil spring and guide rod assembly. Mount the slide onto the frame. Function test. And there we go. As simple as that, we have installed the Crimson Trace red dot optic CTS-1500 onto the Springfield Armory XDS 9mm 3.3 inch OSP.